was an invasion of the colonial masters in Benin, it could also not fade easily, having the nostalgic side of history, remembering or discovering that in 1929, the Aba Women Riot has taken place, apartheid in South Africa of Nelson Mandela and his freedom fights, he eventually never lost his sweat. These were my stories. Stories I was being bestowed on. Stories of which my ancestors has ordained me to tell. The 1960 history of Nigerian independence, and soon after, suddenly trapped by the Biafra War in 1967. Teenagers like me had fought the war and died a brave soldiers. Even child soldiers has a story in it. These are my story, our story, which I had fallen in love with. From where I grew up, people around me doesn't love reading. Sorry, and I understand the sarcasm of which I say this. Reading, when it is a fiction, they loved their business, and every day, every time, you hear business and do business. And education, they have made a conspicuous risk. Because these people need quick money to buy Benz and build house, to live large, and which they have observed and concluded that education is long life stressing process. And at the end, you won't even get a job. Talk more of this when government workers are not paid their salaries for months and certainly for years too. So I blame no one for this indifference behavior towards education. When Virgin Virus came up to as a novel title to really establish an ambrosial story along it, I knew how eager I was to construct the stories, how I was exquisitely engaged, searching for words, which is what I have done almost all my life, searching for words. So famously, I have always yearned to write girls' child education. Yes, girls' child education, because I felt that equity has never been balanced all my life. Because equity needs a shape, equity needs a space, equity needs an accommodation as humans and for humanity's sake. And I was inspired by girls' child education. It was the basis of my writing Virgin Virus. To tell gender-based violence, mostly also youthful exuberance and basically sexual agency and shame. But then, when I started to write, I was still at chapter 1, and my kid brother, who had earlier discovered my enthusiasm to write about Virgin Virus, walked up to me and said, "Do you know that the fastest sleeping pill anyone will give me is book?" But there was no cause for alarm because I perfectly understood his childish persuasiveness. I knew he already understood it's inevitable for him to resolve with his conscience without reading his brother's book. And so he was indirectly telling me that reading gets him bored, and even if I should write.
Change the microphone.
Even if I should write, it should be less than 30 pages. How I wish he discovered the fortunes at reading. But I know reading gave me a flight of understanding and exposures that I needed. It is the best way to understand our world in this complicated time. And reading literature gave the humanity in me. It makes empathy possible. When we read, we become alive in bodies that are not our own. And if there is anything that we need sorely or greatly, it is empathy. Exactly what it is like to be another person. But we can approximate it by inhaling the stories of other people. More of being a woman and a man. Virgin Virus is a story I have written, intending to explore sexual agency and shame. Because I know the reason, and I've discovered, and I have found, and I've watched closely, that the reason that most people kept silent when they are being sexually harassed, it's because they have not given the platform. They have not been given the language to talk about their sexual being. What it means to feel ashamed, to be stigmatized, especially when something sudden happened to your health issue. Why people can't freely talk about their sexual agencies due to shame, and this has imposed a lot of threats on the existence of humanity. How shame lies at gender inequality. Why you need to feel ashamed because you are either a man or a woman. This gender inequality is the reason why most African marriages failed to succeed, because they are always placing unnecessary values on their children. Wanting male child and male child and male child and male child alone, in some cases, tends to hate their offspring due to gender and disparaging women, whom I feel should be considered and given a space as human beings. Parents should raise their children differently, because I feel this is the basis of gender inequality and gender-based violence, because from growing up, they have already shaped their children's life. They have already, because I know that while growing up, parents already expected that because you are a man, you have to be a man, and then because you are a man, you can't cry anyhow, which I feel is unjust. They are indirectly robbing the male child the feeling of humanity. Parents should raise their children, tell them and teach them, let them learn and know that in life, people are different. Let them know that people are different. Tell them that in life, there will be Christians and there will be Muslims. There will be male and there will be boy. Some people will be poor and some people will be rich, and some people will be moderate. Tell them that all fingers are not equal. Teach our children differently. Bring them up. There were so many reasons I wanted to write Virgin Virus. And I feel because of the stigmatization that most people go through in their health issues, and why they can't talk about it. But greatly, I am so happy that I am launching Virgin Virus. And today is so remarkable because it's an open door for more stories to be told. And I know there are so many people here today, so many teenagers like me today, that are wishing or loving what I do. Thank you for that. And I would love to thank those who have supported me, those who have come a long way with me, and whom without I cannot be standing here today. Greatly to my senior cousin, Miss Onukolinius Ejiofo. He brought me up from childhood. He shaped me. He gave me a voice and he gave me a platform to tell my stories and to exist myself, and he introduced me to the publishing of Virgin Virus, financially, morally, and any other way you could think about it. And also to those who have supported me greatly, to the vice principal admin, whom I once and whom I will forever, and whom I feel almost all the time to call daddy, because he understood me when I started coming, and he welcomed me when I started approaching him. He never sent me back for once, for any reason. And it's a great privilege to tell him thank you at this moment. And also to all the government day secondary school Hawaii staffs, most especially to Mr. Marvelous for teaching me the best English language that I